comes to maybe the popular term de-risking or decoupling, what would you suggest that what is the best option for maybe the Western world to do with
I
China?
I think that's the best option. I really do think that's the best option. Now,
Maybe, but maybe de-risking and decoupling maybe.
yeah,
Well, which one do you
yeah, de-risking is the best option. Yeah.
not decoupling?
No, not decoupling. Okay, so
Okay.
a couple of things about me, because I probably said something about decoupling on TV in the past, but I'm very aggressive. I have a military background and I'm Italian, so I tend to get angry and I hate communism. I
Okay.
really hate communism. Now, my we should decouple from China. Now, actually, this de-risking is a very good strategy because if we decouple, you have to announce. As of April the 1st, there will be no more investment in China with decoupling, right? That would be, Xi Jinping would see that as a declaration of war. Not that I care if we go to war with China, but that would immediately destroy the relationship. We said we're going to de-risk. What does de-risking mean? Well, it means you don't have to close your factory that's in China, but when instead of expanding that factory, why don't you build a new factory in Indonesia or India or Vietnam? And you know what? If you want to close your factory in China, that's okay. Do that too, and go to Vietnam or India. So it's a more of a gradual process. And initially, what China's missing, what they're losing, is the new investment, which is less of a slap in the face than losing something they already have. So if the Nike factory in China closes tomorrow, that's a loss that they will actually be able to quantify and feel. If Nike says we're going to open a new factory in India, well, there's nothing China can say about that. So I think de-risking is an excellent strategy.
But the question is the extent of it. What is the right extent of the de-risking? I mean, to move your investment to maybe other places. But what's the right the proportion?
Nobody knows yet. It's the first time it's ever happened. Yeah. If you think about wars in the past, we didn't have a lot of investment necessarily in Germany or Japan before World War II. So I don't know that we really have, that we know what the right rate should be. One of the nice things about this is that it's accelerating automation, and I am kind of fascinated by robots. So that's the other option. So some American companies, Biden White House is very proud of saying X number of American companies are reshoring. Yes, but about 60% of them are reshoring and making automated factories. Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy. I'm happier to see them reshoring. Unfortunately, the automated factory doesn't create as many jobs, but okay, I'm still happy to see them come back to the US shore. So that's wonderful. But what this de-risking is doing is it's accelerating automation and the development of robots. The reason why is because normally what happens is you have people working and you have a robot, and you compare the price of a robot to the price of people working. And as the wages of workers increase, and at the same time technology is getting better, so the price of the robot is decreasing, and when they meet, that's where you have automation.
When will they meet?
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is accelerating the meeting, because right now the wage is the Chinese wage because we're manufacturing in China. If we're forced to move the company to America or to Europe or something, well, now the wage is much higher and robots are getting much cheaper. So this is accelerating automation.
So what happens in Taiwan is that when the Chinese economy is bad, and they will try to appeal to the Taiwan business to invest more in China. When the FDI of the Western world has decreased, they try to do that. And sometimes for a lot of people it works in China, in Taiwan. What would you say that to those business in Taiwan? Should they invest more in China now?
Yeah, that's the irony is Taiwan is so small, but it's one of the largest investors, in mainland China. And I think it's because a lot of the older business people who have money, they don't speak English. Yeah, even in Taiwan, they don't necessarily speak English. They don't necessarily know a lot about the rest of the world. I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean that it's easier for them culturally and everything else. And as much as, yeah, as much as they hate politically, maybe, but culturally, right? So yes, a lot of Taiwanese companies, but yeah, I mean, I would caution Taiwanese businesses from increasing their FDI in China because we don't know what's going to happen, and you could easily lose that investment, or you're still subject to the sanctions or the tariffs. If you're going to manufacture in China and export to the United States, you're still subject to the sanctions and the tariffs. And I think the chip ban might be one of the things that will very much discourage specifically Taiwanese investment in mainland China.
Yeah. So uh, uh, we are going to have a major election next year, next January, the next presidential election.
Yeah.
So whoever is going to be elected is going to face the timeline. A lot of experts on China say that they would attack Taiwan maybe 2027 or 2025 maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, the timeline seems to be close. So what would you? Let me ask you first. What do you think that it will prompt Xi Jinping to attack Taiwan? Anything said there?
That's a really good question. So from as an economist and with the military background, I would say that China is very concerned about a couple of things. They are food dependent. They're not food independent. They have to import their food. And this means that if they go to war and the US puts a blockade on China, they're afraid of that they can't get food. China is food dependent and they're also energy dependent. And they have to get right now a lot of their energy coming through the Straits of Malacca, and then the U.S. 7th Fleet controls South China Sea and Straits of Malacca. So they're afraid that if they go to war, that we could cut off their energy, which is why they're putting so much effort into building these pipelines across Trans-Siberia and Mongolia, Central Asian republics. So we have always sort of believed that China would not invade Taiwan until they knew that they had energy independence, till they had food independence. And then also, the US military is still more powerful than the Chinese military, but they are modernizing very quickly their army and expanding their PLA. So then the other thing was, well, will they wait until the PLA is larger or stronger than the US? Having said all of this, that's what we always kind of discussed. Well, Xi Jinping has a goal of 2050, by 2050, to have the PLA to be more powerful than the American military. By 2050, they'll be energy independent, food independent, allegedly. They'll be the dominant world power, at which point I think they'll just plan to take Taiwan. However, given the current economy, there is very little chance that they will achieve those goals by 2050. I mean, it's almost zero that they would. So then the question is, well, if you can't do it by 2050, will you do it now? And that's kind of the wild card. Yeah, so he definitely probably cannot do it by 2050, may or may not be willing to wait till 2050 anyway. So the question is, will he do it in 2027 or something like that? And the answer is, I don't know. And one of the questions that keeps being raised is, if Xi can't save the economy, maybe he could take Taiwan to show the people that he did something great for China. And that will be his great contribution to Chinese history, that he's the leader who took Taiwan. So that might prompt him to move soon.